The weight of folklore. I never intended to become a pariah, but the echoes of my family's laughter still ring in my ears. The day I refused to dismiss the monstrous whispers from the cornfields, I marked my own exile. Paranormal Exterminator? My brother snorted, rolling his eyes so hard I feared they'd get stuck. You're just making excuses for your delusions. My mother wept, not for me, but because I'd brought shame upon her name. And my father, he muttered something about disgrace and how it would be better if I just let it all go. I felt their disdain like a weight pressing down on my chest, but I'd never been one to back down. After getting fired from my pest control job for reporting the unnatural sounds that gnawed at the edges of the cornfields, I immersed myself in research, desperately peeling back the layers of folklore that my family saw as nothing more than quaint stories meant for children. They said I'd lose my mind, disgrace the family, and worse, become nothing. Years passed, filled with obsession and fear. I became a ghost in those sprawling agricultural landscapes, tracing the shadowy trails of sinister fungi and cursed grains. I unearthed the lore behind crop failures and a darkness that feasted on the roots of rural innocence. They laughed then, the townsfolk, just like my family. "You're chasing demons in the dirt, you fool," they'd say. But I knew better. I emerged, not unscathed, but undeniably changed, a renowned expert feared by some, revered by others, and all too familiar with the horrors others dared not face. I returned home one October evening, the air thick with the scent of decay, the ground chilled underfoot. My heart thundered as I approached the house that had once echoed with my family's scorn. It stood stark against the dying day, alone in the rolling fields. I was no longer the mock-worthy child. I was a harbinger of truths wrapped in darkness. "Here he comes, the ghost of our disgrace," my brother jeered, arms crossed defiantly. My father's scowl deepened, and my mother's eyes glistened with a blend of fear and regret. They had borne witness to my relentless pursuit and had hoped to see me broken. But instead, I had come back, a vessel of terrible knowledge. "Listen to me," I said, my voice a serrated whisper. "You need to understand what I've uncovered. There are things in the soil that can't be ignored, things that will come for us if we remain blind." They shared glances, mocking smiles barely hidden. I clenched my fists, feeling the ancient weight of the lore I carried, the knowledge that had cost more than I could have imagined. I turned and walked toward the field, the corn swaying ominously under the darkening sky, each rustle a beckoning finger from the abyss. As I stepped into the cornfield, a chill slithered through the air, wrapping around me like a noose. "You're going to regret this," my brother shouted, laughter now tinged with nervousness. "You're just talking nonsense." But the whispers began, chilling, familiar, and now woven with an insidious hunger. I had come to recognize the sound as an omen, a warning, the very thing that had driven me to the edge in the first place. The air thickened, reverberating with a language of the damned. A figure emerged from between the stalks, a robed silhouette, and the whispers grew louder, morphing into a chorus of pleading souls caught in an eternal harvest. I turned to face my family, and the realization dawned on me with a sickening clarity. They were about to witness the very horrors they had derided. The being before me, cloaked in shadow, was a manifestation of the ancient force I had chased for years. I had learned to survive it, to tame it, but they knew nothing. I felt their fear slice through the air, more tangible than the creeping fog that encircled us. "What is that?" my mother gasped, clutching her heart as the figure drew closer, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "They're the keepers of the harvest," I said, voice trembling. "Once dismissed as folklore, and now they've come to settle the debts of disbelief." The whispers crescendoed, and the figure pointed a skeletal finger at my family. Their laughter turned to horror as the ground shuddered beneath our feet. I felt their shame wash over me like a tidal wave. But it was too late for redemption. The entity before us was hungry, and it wouldn't discriminate between those who believed and those who did not. With a wail that echoed through time, the being lunged for them. My brother screamed as he was engulfed in shadows, dragged into the very soil that had been dismissed as nothing more than dirt. Their horror-stricken faces etched agony upon my heart, but I stood rooted in place, watching the consequence of their mockery unfold. As the shadows receded, I was left panting, heart racing with the weight of what had transpired. I had lost them, yes, but not without a price. I had become what they feared and what I had sought to warn them of, a vessel of truths too terrible to bear, forever marked by the horrors of the harvest. I left that night with an unbearable burden, the whispers still echoing in my mind. I had chased the darkness in search of validation, only to find that sometimes the truth merely reveals the weight of our choices. I had returned a harbinger, and the cost of refusal hung heavy in the air, an eternal reminder that disbelief can cultivate far more terrifying crops than any folklore ever could.